then, welcome to my book corner. We're on to the second new release that I'm reviewing for this year, and that is none other than book 2 of the Spawn Soldier series by Kingfisher, What Feast Night. This is the follow-up to What Moves the Dead, which was a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher. This, from my understanding, is an original story, but follows the same characters. That title. This released on the 13th of February, and as always, we shall take a look at the story, the characters, the world building, as well as the presentation. For my final thoughts at the end, let's jump in. So, while What Moves the Dead was a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher, What Feasts at Night feels like a more original story, and I believe it is, but it's inspired by Eastern European folklore. We are once again reunited with Alex Easton, and the story again told from point of view as he makes his way back home to a hunting lodge that he owns in Gallacia, with his sort of travelling companion from the previous, Angus. And they're making their way here kind of as a favour to Angus. Angus ended up in a potentially religious, romantic, that's the word, relationship with Miss Potter, the mycologist from the first book, and they have invited Miss Potter to attend the lodge and study some of the mushroom fungi that are unique to that region. When they get there, they discover the lodge is in a state of disrepair. Cauldron, who was the kind of caretaker, is nowhere to be found. It looks like he's not been there for a while. And after inquiring in the nearby town, they discovered that Cauldron actually passed away with some form of lung infection, it would appear. Although everyone seems to be a bit tight-lipped about it. And you then have this series of events while they try and tidy up the lodge ready for this English gentlewoman arriving. And they realise that as neither Angus nor Alex can cook anything that isn't burnt, they should probably get someone to come in and help cook and clean and so on and so forth. So they hire two people in the village, widow Botazatu. That's how we're just going to call her widow from now. And I think it's her grandson, Bors, a big strapping lad who's described as being slow but not important. And they eventually get the house in order just in time for Miss Potter's arrival. And while they're there, they begin to hear rumours that some people believe that the place is a little bit cursed, that some form of spirit there, and that's what actually caused the death of Cauldron. And that spirit is called a Moroi. And you have the sort of breakdown in sanity, I suppose, of Widow when Bors becomes ill with what appears to be a similar sort of thing, a difficulty of breathing and vivid dreams. And what this book does a very good job of is obfuscating, once again, just like in book 1, how much of this is real, how much of it is just unexplained because of the science of the time, and if there is a genuine supernatural element going on here, as you have the widow throwing every sort of counter curse and protection thing that she knows from folklore, most of which is generally aimed at keeping away the other families, or the Fae as they're known elsewhere. Bors continues to get ill, and then Alex themselves become ill as well. The story is quite strong. It has a very good sort of rooting in the East European folklore and the actual cause of what's going on. Whilst it is never totally clearly explained, it is left very much up in the air whether this is a supernatural event or just an infection that science is explaining as the distrust of doctors. It does a good job of reeling you in. You have a true sense of jeopardy for Alex and for Bors, as well as they get increasingly ill, see things which may or may not be there. So overall, I actually do think that as an original tale, this is quite well done. So again, we're following Alex Easton, and Alex doesn't feel like quite the same character in a lot of ways in this one. The way they are portrayed in this is a lot more light-hearted, a lot funnier, quite sarcastic, and actually kind of root for them a lot more in this. Now, part of that is going to be due to the atmosphere of this story. This isn't a childhood or early life best friend in the last throes of life sort of situation. So you don't have the sort of grim sense that he had in what what moves the dead. But what you have instead is a number of quippy internal monologues that are quite humorous to read, and it makes it a lot more interesting to actually read them as a character this time around. As for the other characters, you don't really get a huge amount overall. Miss Potter, for my mind, doesn't need to be there like at all. Her inclusion very much feels almost like fan service. She's there to give them an excuse to go to the lodge, but they could have gone for any reason anyway. And is kind of there just to go, oh, mushroom, and occasionally be involved in fetching other plot elements in because of the fact that she doesn't speak Gallacian, but she does speak German, which a number of people in the town do, like the local doctor and the local. The character that probably gets the most sort of time on top of Alex is the widow, and she is cranky. Is the best way of putting it, I suspect. She is not quite rude with Alex as her employer, but there's definitely a sense of how dare you be my employer going on there. Whereas she is absolutely so friendly with like the priest or Angus or anybody that isn't Alex. She is shown, however, to have a great deal of superstition about her. She starts hanging like red thread from the various antlers and heads that are mounted on the wall in this hunting lodge to try and that was a way to stop the Fae stealing babies and stuff like that when things start to go wrong and Bo starts to get ill. Hides metal knives under the pillows of all the guests, help keep safe at night, things like that. And she's quite confrontational, but she is shown to be willing to do anything for Bors, who describes as the last of blood. Now, Bors is not really in it that much. He's kind of there to be a victim in many regards, but there is some characterization as well. He's very much the big, kindly, slow, giant sort of character. He's very much all brawn, all muscle, hard working, has a deep sense of duty, but is perhaps not the brightest. And again, that's not to say that he's stupid, far from it, just that it takes him a while to reach a conclusion. And then when he reaches a conclusion, a course of action, nearly impossible to stop. He's described as almost glacier-like in the way that thought process moves. And he's quite a likable character. And he actually has a really interesting ending in the book as well. The other sort of characterization for this goes to the Moroi, which I'm not going to go into too much here. It does feel very, very inspired by like wraith-like figures from Eastern European myth. If you've ever played or the Witcher games or read the Witcher books, you'll actually probably recognize some of the descriptions. Lots of monsters from there pull from the same folklore as well. And as I was reading it, I was sat there trying to think what this reminded me of, and it was exactly that. And overall, I did find the characters more enjoyable in this than what moves. World building then, and it's actually pretty good, which is no great surprise from Kingfisher's work that I've read previously. You get a real sense of a place that's kind of stuck in time and stuck past with Gallacia. Specifically around the way the people are, they're very distrusting of like the scientific method. So there's examples of the doctor, for example, but definitely trusting the priest. You have this sort of society where stuff isn't so much written. There's very few written books in the Gallacian language, which is mentioned in here, and it's very much more an oral tradition of passing down information, and it's very rooted in folklore and superstition. In terms of the places themselves, they don't get as much description as they did in What Moves the Dead. The key thing that's mentioned here is how quiet it is, especially compared to Paris, which is where Alex has travelled from. And that plays into sort of some of his character traits with his PTSD, because without the hustle and the bustle to distract him, he starts to have more inward looking thoughts and reflecting more on the war that he was recently part of. And it is really, really well done. The other bit of the world building that's really strongly done is often done through dialogue, especially through Widow, in terms of folklore, superstitions, and various little rituals, for want of a better term, how to deal with things like the other families or the Fae. So that's really good as well, and really does make this feel like a living, breathing world. So overall, I actually think the world building is really strong in this. In terms of presentation, then, this is a very different beast to its predecessor in that it doesn't feel as horror themed in many regards. It doesn't have the sort of claustrophobic atmosphere that What Moves the Dead did. Instead, this has a much lighter tone, largely driven by the fact that Alex feels like a far more light-hearted character because he doesn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders so much. He hasn't got a closer friend at dying. And to a point that kind of reduces the stakes and takes some of the tension away a little bit. But that takes away from the fact that this is still an outstanding novel. It is very well paced, it's very well written, and Kingfisher once again manages to merge the scientific and more superstitious natures to make it totally unclear as to what is really going on, even though, as people in the 21st century, we can probably safely say that this is pneumonia and then hallucinations before death. Also, I'd just like to mention the cover. Again, I have the UK cover, but I will drop over there a picture of the US cover, which I think, whilst it's not quite as good, is a lot closer than a lot of US covers tend to be to the UK ones in terms of quality. Let me know which one you prefer in the comments below. But yeah, well paced, good sense of tension, decent characters, and if anything, the characters are more lovable this time round as well. So overall, I think, unsurprisingly, this is a very well presented, very well written, very economically written book. So this is a 4-star from me. It's still a really, really good novella, but it's very different from book one. I think the characterization of Alex Easton in particular is a high point. I love the way they were written in this one. I love the extra level of humour and sarcasm that's inherent with there. And they did have a decent character arc regards their own personal history in terms of their PTSD or soldier's heart as it's referred to, and how that kind of plays into the story itself. The world building is very, very strong as well, just as strong as in the previous title. Where this falls down a little bit is in terms of atmosphere. Whereas there was a sense of constant dread in What Moves the Dead, What Feasts at Night doesn't manage to quite capture that as much, partially due to the tonal shift with Alex, and also because the characters that initially get ill are not ones that have a great deal of sort of connection to Alex, then you don't feel quite as much dread at what's going on with them. But that being said, I am on board for more books of this series. I think this is a really good way to take a look and an inspiration from folklore and stories from cultures that I've not really spent too much time looking into, and I'm really interested in seeing where this series might go from here. Well, that's my thoughts on What Feasts at Night. Let me know if you've read this or any other Kingfisher books in the comments below. I'll catch you all soon.